South Africa is officially off the United Kingdom's red list for travel. The UK has cut 47 destinations from that red list. The country's Transport Secretary Grant Shapps says that the change will officially take effect from today. Now, other countries that have been removed from the list include Ghana, India and Turkey. They will also be treated as UK vaxxed passengers. Now, South African travel agencies have reported a surge in reservations for travel to and from Britain after the country was removed from the UK's COVID-19 red list. Some companies say that they're being overwhelmed by the number of people looking to travel since the British government announcement. To talk to us a little bit more on this boom in tourism between the UK and South Africa after the lifting of the ban, we're now joined by tourism consultant Gillian Saunders. Gillian, thanks very much indeed for joining us and welcome to the programme.
Thanks, Peter, and thanks for having me. Lovely to be here.
All right, okay. Hoping to get you up on the screen just now, but great news, okay. I guess.
Fantastic news. Look, we're getting more and more certain that the announcement, which actually came on Thursday, that we'd be taken off the list was going to happen. And there've been a lot of movement, especially in the last sort of 6 weeks, in persuading the Brits, in persuading the media there that they needed to look at the science properly and they would see that we should not have been on the red list. And so, yes, we're off the red list. And I think for all of us in the tourism industry, our expectations are being exceeded in terms of the sort of the flood of bookings that have been coming in. It's been absolutely amazing.
And it's come just at the right time, isn't it? Because it's this time of the year, it's getting colder in Europe and our holiday season starts to kick in.
Absolutely. So we know that we're a winter sun destination for the Brits who are very much starved of sunshine through their winter. And we were a little bit concerned that the bookings would be still for predominantly next year. But we're getting reports that the bookings are coming in within 2 weeks, 2 months. People are seeing a flood of bookings. A lot of people in the industry had held on to bookings that they'd postponed. So they'd held their forward book, they'd rolled it forward. But those were not confirmed. A lot of those are being confirmed. I've heard things like the number of inquiries are 400% higher than they were a couple of months ago. And they're higher than they were in early 2020, just before the lockdowns. So the industry is, as you said, they're a little bit overwhelmed. And one of the challenges we're going to have, there's two challenges here, is a lot of those businesses, the tour operators, some of the accommodation establishments, they've pared down their staff. They've really reduced their costs. And now they have to rapidly build up again. And at the moment, they've taken their balance sheets down. They've sort of, paid out their debtors and creditors. So working capital is going to be a challenge for some of the people in our businesses. But it's one of those challenges they're happy to have. And the other challenge is the airlines. So the airlines, even before it became official, even in fact before Thursday, because it was looking so positive, we were already seeing the airlines, particularly the December high season flights that were already on, were selling at extremely high fares. And the airlines have been scrambling to put additional flights on. And we know that they are looking at more flights, but at the moment it looks like we need more. There's not enough flights to bring all the people who want to book.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, I remember doing that route quite often. And I think there were even 2 or 3 flights from South African Airways alone. So, and they're not in the equation. A number of other airlines are not in the equation. So getting a seat is going to be quite a thing.
It's quite a thing. So we know that both British Airways and Virgin are looking at additional flights on the route. We know that there's a lot of people come via Emirates, for instance, and via Dubai, and that can still happen. Even places like Ethiopia, brilliant African airline. There's a great hub via Ethiopia to get to South Africa. So we think the people are going to get here that want to get here, and hopefully the airlines will start seeing this demand and will be able to put additional capacity on. Well, it's just really, we all sort of like crying with joy in the industry because it's sort of like a tap's been opened. Yes, we're not going to be totally back at 2019, 2020 levels, but compared to the sort of total drought of business we've had of foreign tourists, and I'm sure your listeners know because we've been saying it for a few days now or for a few weeks, the UK is our single biggest overseas source market. Usually 450,000 Brits come here. It's got a fantastic number of visitors to friends and relatives in both directions. We've got a lot of Brits who are actually what we call swallows. They tend to come here for 3 months during the summer season. They either own a property here or they rent a property here. And then we have a lot of trade and investment links, and some of those have not been able to travel. And sometimes when we look at trade and investment where the relationships already exist, they've been able to continue those on Zoom, but we don't know about all the new deals, all the new investments, all the new trade that could have happened where people don't know each other yet. So this is just a fantastic all-round boost for the South African economy, and we hope this will be maintained going forward.
All right, I was in Durban recently and stayed at a hotel, and it looked as if they are COVID ready. And I just wonder, are all hotels good with the protocols and safe?
Yes, they are. We were, as a tourism industry, we put together very comprehensive COVID operating protocols. As early as May last year, we got our first version out and we continued to update those. They were accepted by the World Travel and Tourism Council. The Department of Tourism used them as a base to put the regulations or the directions in place that they also put together. And so our industry has been really well prepared. And if you think about it, we've actually had domestic tourists testing our industry back going to August last year, basically, if not a little bit earlier. And we haven't had any particular reports of major incidents of COVID breakouts in our industry at all. And the industry knows how important it is to have those protocols in place and strong. And we know that the foreign tourists need the confidence that those things are practiced. And the other thing, of course, we're doing as an industry is we're really promoting to have all of our staff vaccinated. So most of our businesses are working very closely with all the employees to work on programs to get them or have them all vaccinated. So that will also make our tourists feel safer if they know that the staff are vaccinated. But of course, the thing that really makes the tourists safe is that the tourists themselves will be fully vaccinated, or most likely will be fully vaccinated, because if they're not, the old requirements still apply. So it's only if they're fully vaccinated travellers, but they don't do quarantine when they go back to the UK.
All right, so explain to us the process. You get on at Heathrow, you land at OR Tambo, Cape Town International. What happens when you disembark? You just flash your vaccination card and they say, welcome to South Africa?
Unfortunately not, Peter. One of the things we're still talking to government on is that government should possibly look at relaxing our requirements for foreign visitors who are fully vaccinated. At the moment, whether or not you're fully vaccinated, we don't actually check that. What we check is that you have a negative PCR test. So we're still at the moment requiring everybody who comes to the country to have a negative PCR test to get in. And that hasn't yet changed. Hopefully, we will move towards the dispensation that many countries are starting to have, that if you're double vaccinated or if you're fully vaccinated, the PCR test falls away. But a number of nations still require a PCR test. The USA, for one, does. So as well as being fully vaccinated, they still want you to arrive with a PCR negative test. But that will be the next thing, hopefully.
All right. And I guess what was putting them off was when they got back to England, they had to stay in these hotels that the government had set up, and they'd spend something ridiculous like £2,000, 40,000 rand.
2,200 and something pounds to stay in a very, from most people's experience, not a particularly nice hotel, small hotel room. Food wasn't great. The organisation to have I think it was 20 minutes exercise out of your room each day. A lot of things were not particularly pleasant. And people used the word, it felt like incarceration and it felt like a prison, and it wore them down. And you can imagine the cost as well. If you're one person, it's already a lot of money. But if you're a family, although there was a discount for families, it was a huge amount of money. And it's 10 days out of your life sitting in basically a small room with them, nothing much to see and do. So that was extremely prohibitive. What's ironic is we see from the uptake now with the extremely high fares that the people who are coming from the UK, in some instances, the £2,200 wasn't really the issue. It was the discomfort and not wanting to sit in that hotel room. And unfortunately, they weren't the nicest hotel rooms from most people's experience. So that was the single biggest factor that stopped the people coming. The UK also had what they called a strong advisory against all but all essential travel was strongly advised against to South Africa. And so, of course, a lot of people who had certain might have been nervous, they would follow their Foreign Office advice and they wouldn't think of travelling here as well. Luckily, they lifted that advice today. So 3 things fell into place with the UK. We're off the red list. They recognise our vaccine certificates, which is fantastic for South Africans wanting to travel there, and they took away the advisory. We're now not seen as a particularly well, there's no adverse COVID recommendations with respect to us as a destination.
All right. If I want to travel to the UK, what do I need beyond my certificate?
Just make sure you've got your digital certificate, and that's all you need.
Wow.
I think you do have to take what they call a lateral flow test. We call an antigen test. It's a cheap, quick, almost a self-test after you arrive. They are still requiring that in the UK, but that's not so onerous and not so costly.
So who's likely to benefit the most in terms of the influx of UK visitors? Is it the beach cities, the game parks? Where are they going typically?
Well, typically they do go to the beach cities. They go to Cape Town, they go to the garden route, they go to the game lodges, the Kruger Park. They do go to Durban. So they travel all over the country. Actually, I have a small cottage in the Drakensberg. I've already got one British booking later on in November coming into that cottage in the Drakensberg. So they travel all over the country. I think at the moment it'll be visiting friends and relatives, which again, that can be in Gauteng, it can be in Nelspruit, it can be in lots of different parts of the country. But the pure holidaymakers and the swallows typically go to the coast along the West Cape, Western Cape and Eastern Cape.
All right, so I suppose with all of these things, you've got to plan for the worst case scenario. So let's say December happens, everyone comes on holiday, they have a great time, they go back to England, and then January, February hits, and we're worried about a fourth wave. What sort of contingencies are you thinking about if there is a rise in infections and we've had all these staff coming back to the industry?
Lisa, I'm not going to put my neck on the line here, and I'm not an epidemiologist, but we are talking, and we have been talking for a number of months with some of our scientists about different aspects of the COVID pandemic. And two things I would say is that if you actually look where we were through our third wave in terms of our number of cases, pretty much all the way through the third wave, we still had lower case numbers in some of the countries that the UK had on amber and green lists. And so I think the trend around the world is, unless there's exceptionally high levels of the pandemic, if people are vaccinated, it's seen as safe for those people to travel. If there's protocols in place and the people are vaccinated. Then the other side of this is our vaccinations are not going too badly. They're a little bit up and down sometimes with the vaccine hesitancy. We're at about, I think it's the third of adults have had either one jab or are fully vaccinated, which means about a third of adults have already got some protection through vaccines. 25% have got full protection through vaccines. That is going up every now and quite reasonably each week. We're increasing that percentage. At the same time, given all the people who have had COVID, and the estimates are that it's a little bit more than our official numbers, lots of people have a degree of immunity from prior infections. So there's a fair amount of thinking that the fourth wave won't be a particularly high wave in South Africa. I hope this is correct thinking, and that's what we would hope. And we hope that the British stay the same as many of the other countries and start saying, well, it's really the travellers' vaccine status that determines whether they're safe or not to travel. So we're really hoping that a bit of those combinations will mean we won't be going on to any red lists or any high-risk lists again in the future. But it is something that we there's nothing we can do but hope it doesn't happen. What I hear from the scientists is that the biggest challenge around the world now, as we move in many countries to what they call endemic as opposed to pandemic, is a new variant. But again, at the moment, there's been 3 or 4 variants that potentially could have challenged the Delta variant. One was the C1.2 that was identified in South Africa. Another was called Mu, which the World Health Organization made a variant of concern. A variant of interest. Another was Lambda that was predominantly seen in South America. It would appear that none of those have been able to actually outclass the Delta variant. So the Delta variant is almost like potentially an apex variant that is hopefully the best COVID can do. So the biggest single challenge for all of us globally is that another variant comes along that is actually worse and more transmissible than the Delta variant. If that doesn't, and we already know vaccines are effective against the Delta variant, pretty much with vaccines, the world is slowly moving to this being an endemic disease that we live with, that we have vaccinations against, so the levels of hospitalization and death are kept to a minimum, potentially even lower than flu in a normal flu year.
All right, and perhaps to close, and we don't have much time, so if you can answer as quickly as you can, but December, GP plates, head out to Durban, head out to Cape Town. Are we going to cope with the tourists from abroad, plus probably more domestic travel than ever before?
I think our industry will rise to the occasion. We may creak at the seams, but we love serving our tourists. We love giving them the best experiences that they can have, whether they're domestic tourists, whether they're international tourists. That's what we love doing in the tourism industry. And I think we'll be absolutely opening our arms and every single way we can, we'll be making sure those tourists have a great experience. The industry has had such a drought, such a terrible, terrible 20 months that they will welcome any tourists and they will do their utmost to serve them. So I think we'll cope. We'll cope.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for giving us a story, a positive one to start the week on. Thanks so much indeed, Gillian, and good luck with the holiday season.
Peter, thank you very much. Thank you for having me on the program. It's wonderful.
Great. All right, so that's pretty positive news, isn't it? And look forward to a booming tourism industry. And it's one of those low-hanging fruits in terms of trying to build up the economy. We've got such beautiful properties and resorts and beaches, you name it, we've got it all. And it'll be good to see people coming into the country once again. All right, we're going to take a quick break and still so much to explore right here